Hello everyone, and welcome to the 17th vlog dedicated to the 100 epic Reads of a Lifetime reading poster that I acquired in the year 2020 and have slowly been making my way through for the past 6 years. I had decided for the final 8 books to read off of the poster that I would split them off into 2 vlogs that I would complete by the end of this year. I had planned to create a normal structure for these videos that I do with the rest of the vlogs, but that did not turn out at all. I ended up just being piled by nothing really, and the video did not turn out that well. I did not make a lot of clips talking about the books that I read, hence I have to do this sit-down chat with you and summarize all of my thoughts on the 3.5 books that I read from January till June. Unfortunately, yes, I did not make my way through War and Peace like I thought, but I only have 500 pages left out of 1,200, so forgive me. This is the first update that I have done for Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. I started this bad boy in January. It's May, and I've only just gone on to volume 2, which is about 300 pages into this copy of the novel. Oh boy, where to start, right? It's taken me this long just to get this far into the novel. This is like dipping a toe in. This is nothing. Of course, this book needs no introduction. This is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, which is about the 1812 Russian invasion by Napoleon and all of these subsequent characters dealing with this war in their intermingling lives. A few of the main characters include Pierre, Andre, and just like hundreds of other characters who are seemingly important and all tangling together amidst this great country-shattering series of events. So far in Volume 1, I was introduced to the main characters, particularly Pierre and his quest to be seen as legitimate. He is the illegitimate son of a count, and he wants to be legitimized so he can have more of an upstanding like role in society and just, you know, be legitimized and get money and all of that, keep his title. So that was the first part prior to the first instance of war by Napoleon against the Russians. It then follows the opening wars and battles in this war. It then goes into the opening battles in this war and everybody's kind of response being, we are fighting for glory, we are fighting for fun, like they're not taking the war seriously. And a huge part of those chapters was everybody worried about how they looked. So that was a huge deal in what they were, you know, fighting for, was trying to look good, trying to all look pretty in a line for all of their superior officers, when in reality war is brutal and it's not just tactics and it's not just clean boots, you know, it is brutal and horrible and terrible. And then suddenly everyone slowly becomes disillusioned the more they are on the field, including the higher up superior officers who don't actually do too much of the battle, which is all of the foot soldiers' job, of course. Already in this novel there's been a lot of discussions about war, about conversation about the way that Napoleon is tackling their country, the way that they view their country after this has been dealt with, and of course the interpersonal lives of all of these characters. A lot of the women are focused on marriage and connection with other men and stuff, and as well as their connection with each other. And a lot of them put a lot of heavy emphasis on their conversational skills, because the main character Pierre is notoriously antisocial and can't really grasp what they are all like doing with their pleasantries. He wants to get deep into philosophical conversations, which of course is how Leo Tolstoy likes to express himself in his novels as well. All of his novels are sort of a philosophical like interconnection within himself and with the world around him. So of course he's putting all of his philosophical discussion into Pierre. It's really hard to talk about this book because of course everyone has talked about it. It is considered one of the greatest novels, and while it is difficult to get into at first, a lot more difficult than it is to get into his other famous novel, Anna Karenina, once you get used to everything in here and you just sort of take it all in stride and absorb everything, it starts to become just really well done. He has such a capture on his characters that every word on the page makes sense. Like, he will go into their inner thoughts and their inner conflicts, and then he will show how they express themselves outwardly, and sometimes it's the same and sometimes it's vastly different. In the way he just has every character connect and every character talk and every character be involved with each other is so natural. It feels like he's talking about real people and just things that have already happened. It just feels like he's just recording what already happened, even though this is all coming from his imagination. The fact that he can keep track of everything is amazing, and every word you read on the page makes so much sense for it and describes perfectly why every character acts like that. So it's very, very interesting. There is also a lot of French in here that has been nicely translated by one of the translators in here, and it's all on the bottom of the page, so it is so nice to just go down to the bottom of the page and then go back up. It is a really, really good way to have this novel translated, and I'm really, really glad that they kept the French in here because it shows how the French, how Napoleon is slowly interloping into Russian society and like taking it, right? So they have the regular speaking amongst each other, and then the higher ups will speak French, or they will, have conflict because of a lot of the French being involved, because it's showing how it is seeping into their culture. And it is just such a good way to express it through the novel. Like, you can't not have the French in here, so I'm so glad that this translation keeps it that way. So I am about to start book 2. Hopefully I get a little bit more into this for a little bit longer, because now I finally have a grasp of what is going on, and I hope to update you soon. So stay tuned. I will start with my thoughts on War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. This is a giant, grand, epic novel from a very, very famous Russian author about the war between Russia and Napoleon as he is attempting to invade Russia, as well as the 450 giant cast of characters that takes place in this novel. But of course Tolstoy likes to break it down between just a few main characters, that being Pierre and Prince Andrei Bolkonsky, and their lives as they are taking place in the middle of this giant war, this occupation, etc. Pierre was a man who was recently legitimized and then go through a journey of being suddenly this upper class guy in society, and he ends up joining the Freemasons and has a little bit of a religious sort of change in his life. That is something that Tolstoy likes to do through his characters. And then Prince Andrei Bolkonsky is a character who leaves his family in order to take part in the Napoleonic Wars and everything as a result of that. And they eventually both seem to fall for the same woman. This is just merely a subplot so far, because there is a vast number of perspectives, a vast number of things going on in this novel, and they are almost too complicated to go through entirely. But as I have said in earlier clips, this novel is very, very well done at sort of encapsulating everybody's lives, making them feel very, very lived in and very, very realistic. When you are following certain characters, you're not too bored by them because they are fully fleshed out people, and it is so admirable for Tolstoy to be able to have total and complete control of this essentially made-up universe. However, very many real-life people are in this novel, including Napoleon himself. I have just gotten to the Napoleon perspectives, and I just think that it is crazy that he would even attempt to do that. I think that is such a cool addition to this novel and really fleshes things out. Since I am not finished this novel yet, I will simply play my clips discussing it and then cut to me discussing the next book, because I have yet to scratch this book off, but I still have a novel's length worth left to read, so forgive me again. This book is very, very well done so far, but I found myself getting stuck while reading it just because it is so big and so all-encompassing. So hopefully I will have more discussion in my very, very last vlog dedicated to the poster that will be coming out at the end of the year, and you can hear my final thoughts and final rating on War and Peace there. But for now, just look how much I've read. I think I've read 771 pages. I did my best in 6 months. Next, I read The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown, and I did not even have any clips of me discussing any of it during the process of reading. I read this in February, and this is getting 2 stars from me. This is, I believe, the first book in this long series of books that Dan Brown does where they are like thrillers connected to art and history, following the main character as he is solving a lot of these crimes and mysteries. And this one is the most famous one because there was a movie with Tom Hanks playing the main character, and it follows him as he is going to France, into the Louvre, and with a bunch of Leonardo da Vinci's paintings as they are figuring out a conspiracy that Da Vinci put into all of his work. So they are following a bunch of art clues that go to the next, and they are trying to solve a mystery about that. And I believe someone dies. Yeah, someone dies in the inciting incident, like in the section that you're not supposed to be in or something. I don't know, because I did not enjoy reading this book. First of all, I do not like thriller series like this, these sort of pulpier, easy to read, the author puts out a book a year mystery series. I do not like these sort of books. I did not like following the main character and his adventures. He, of course, had a lot of opinions that were very of the time, and he was also just kind of a Gary Stu, that being a male version of a Mary Sue, where he can't do anything wrong, and he's perfect and talented and smart, and everything he does adds up to success, and that's just very boring for me to follow. He's not like a cool character like to follow who's also a hero like Indiana Jones or others. He was just flat and boring and too perfect. I didn't like the female character he was with because everything had to be connected to her because of her father, and it was just it's too perfect. It fits too well. The patterns were too perfect, and to me it was just so boring. I did not feel like I was following them on this great life-changing adventure. It just felt like, what's going on in here? We're trapped in a room. Ah, I know about this theory about the Fibonacci sequence. Very good. Type the numbers in. We got out. What? Why? Why? That's not exciting to me if they just suddenly know what the problem is and how to fix it, like just out of their brain unexpectedly without following proper clues. And it's just one of those books that thinks it's smarter than it really is. Like, oh wow, the Fibonacci sequence. You looked it up on Wikipedia, did you? You found it in a book about Renaissance art, did you? Wow, you're so smart. You took out a few books from the library, or you looked it up online, and you're so much smarter than me, the stupid reader. It was just framed very much like that, and I just did not connect to this book. I didn't like it in the slightest, hence why I didn't even have any clips of me while I was reading the book. I just felt like I would have been sitting there like, this is dumb. I'm not having a good time. So this is one of the books that I seriously consider why the hell it was on the poster. I believe it is just because it was popular and sold a lot of copies. So that is one of those books where I'm like, this is not a read of a lifetime. This was just a bunch of nonsense, and I didn't enjoy it. So that is my opinion on The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. Here is me scratching it off the poster. Next, I read Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes, and here is my clip of me talking about it about halfway through me listening to the audiobook. Okay, so I am now officially halfway through Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. 51% of the way through, I'm listening to the audiobook, which is 44 hours long. And it is safe to say that so far I am pretty much enjoying the story. When I first started listening to it, I got it mixed up with either just a bunch of stuff that's already on the poster or just mixed up the date of publishing. But I assumed that Don Quixote was published somewhere in the early 20th century, so I was not looking forward to listening to it because, oh great, like another 20th century satire based on something much older. I was not going to gain anything out of it. However, I was misinformed. This story was a satire written in the 16th century. That is insane to me. So of course this is a well-renowned book. This is considered the first of its genre, considered one of the greatest novels ever written, and now I can fully acknowledge that and understand that. This has a huge place in history. This book reads very modern, even if my translation modernizes it a bit, but it is the humor that sticks out to me as something that is so entirely modern. I now understand where the complete satire genre stems from. It's this book, essentially. The book covers a man named Don Quixote who is delusional and believes himself to be a chivalrous knight, like King Arthur, like Alexander the Great, like any of the other great knights of the past, and he sets out to do chivalrous tasks for his community, and he ends up taking up someone named Sancho to go along with him as his squire, and together they have a lot of misadventures where there is a lot of misinformation, a lot of fantasy, and a lot of just issues and sort of sitcom situations they get into. My favorite thing that has happened so far is that they keep going back to this inn, and the first time they went to this inn, there was a huge brawl due to a misunderstanding. Everyone was beating the crap out of each other, and no one knew why, but it was just this huge brawl. And then Don Quixote thinks that it is a castle and everybody in it is enchanting him, so he doesn't believe that it is an inn. So they eventually kick him out, going, "You're not paying us, get out, stop, leave the inn." So they leave, and then they go back to the inn and they deal with a different situation, and there's another brawl. So it's just this like Looney Tunes cartoon of just how much they're screwing everything up. It was very funny. My edition of the novel was also the unabridged version, which featured that story within a story, and that went on for a little bit too long. However, I thought that the story within a story was fine enough. I can't remember what it's called. I believe it's something along the lines of The Ill-Fated Curiosity, which is a well-known story within a story. But as I have just started part 2, he's already acknowledged in the foreword that he will not be doing that again, and part 2 is going to focus more on the adventures of Don Quixote and Sancho. But so far I haven't minded the story. I can acknowledge its historical importance to genre, to the Spanish novel, and to the history of satire, but this is not one of my favorite novels off of the poster, of course. It is something that I am glad that the poster has got me to read, but it is just not something that I am becoming really interested in. I will be listening to it and enjoy it as it's playing, but it is just not something that I think I'm going to highly favor. That is such a pattern on this poster. I think it's just more important to read books like this for the sake of their importance and to understand, but I am just not enjoying it as much as the other novels that I have highly favored off of the poster. Plus, a minor complaint that I have is I hate the way this narrator is doing Sancho. He's doing it in a very like, "Oh gee, oh Don Quixote, oh master, oh everything is going wrong and I'm in a terrible situation." And he's just doing like the shaggy, really high register. It's so annoying. Plus, the narrator has run out of accents because he can't give everybody a Spanish accent. So a few times he's given like generic American and then like Texas cowboy, like, "I was making my way down the road." And I'm like, oh, you ran out of voices. Just don't at that point. So that is my update for now. I will let you know my final thoughts when I am finally finished this 44-hour-long beast. So ultimately, I ended up giving the book 3 stars. It was a very long chronicle about the life of Don Quixote, who decides to cast away his former life and decides to take up the chivalric trade of becoming a knight and helping other people in his community and beyond with his squire. And I just think that this was a very fun novel for what it was. I enjoy the sort of love letter to other chivalric romances of the past. I haven't read too many myself. I've only read a few Arthurian ones, but I saw that this was just a huge love letter to that genre. I thought that it was very, very funny for its time. I thought that it was very creative and clever, and I really enjoyed the ways he was going through all of these scenarios and mishaps with this frame of mind and how everything turned out. As I said in the earlier clip, it felt like a sitcom to me, and that was just really enjoyable for the premise and just the sort of like craziness and wackiness that was going on in the book, and there was a lot of sincerity and heart in it despite all of the humor. So I did enjoy it very, very much, and I really enjoyed listening to it. I also really like in the translation, Don Quixote is speaking a higher form of Spanish, an older form of Spanish that would have been considered more medieval. And for the English translation, he sounds very, very up and like medieval. He sounds very Shakespearean. He's saying thou and all of that. So I really liked the way that that was translated to show the other characters speaking a bit more modern, to show the juxtaposition of his new position as a knight. So I really, really enjoyed that aspect as well. This is yet another book that I would have never have read if it weren't for the poster, so I am glad that I expanded my horizons and got to enjoy Don Quixote. And now I know a lot of references. Other shows and other media have referenced Don Quixote, so now I fully understand all of that. So that's exciting as well. And finally, I finish off this video by reading the Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver, and I ended up giving that book 3 stars. I was actually genuinely surprised by my feelings about the novel, because when I first read the synopsis, I was a little bit put off because it is about an American religious family going to the Congo as a mission work for a year, and they end up having a lot of changes to their life that ultimately cause the family itself to completely break apart. Okay, so I am about 100 pages into the Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver, and at first I didn't think I was going to like this book based on the summary because it is just something that I do not gravitate towards. The story is about a preacher, his wife, and his 4 daughters in the mid-20th century going to the Congo in Africa to do mission work for a year, and so far it has just been all of the women's perspectives, that being the mother and the 4 daughters' perspectives, on what they were doing as the mission work and how they are struggling to deal with the new society that they're in, as well as the work of their preacher father or husband. I just never gravitate to this sort of historical fiction, but so far I haven't minded the story. It is definitely interesting to see the differences between both of the cultures. One thing in particular that they are focusing on is the American desire to own objects and use tools every single day. Meanwhile, the people of the Congo use their bodies, use their hands, and use what they have. And one of the big struggles for the family is not having these items that they were so used to, and how that also contradicts the teachings of the preacher, you know, a lot of religious teachings about worldly objects and the greed and sin and all of that, and how that is being contradicted by their way of life. I think that's a very interesting way to approach this sort of story, that being the differences between the tools that different cultures use. For example, the father, the preacher, is trying to make a garden in his current house that he's in while doing mission work because he wants to create his own Garden of Eden. He wants to prove that he can like sow his seed everywhere, that God will provide him what he needs no matter where he is and no matter if the area is suffering or not. And so him and one of his daughters are trying to make a garden, but it is just not working. Obviously, the plants and seeds that they brought are not native to the soil of Africa, of the Congo. As well, the housekeeper, someone who is an African woman, is trying to set up their garden in a way where it will actually provide, grow the plants that they need. and they end up just stomping it flat again. She keeps making raised beds to try and help. She is trying to tell them that they can't plant their plants by this certain tree, a poisonwood tree, and they are not listening to her. So that is just another interesting aspect of them attempting to literally stomp the earth in order to bear the fruit that they want. But obviously it is not going to work because it is not plants that are native to the soil. It is not, they're not going to be able to thrive in this place that they have just walked in and stomped all over. It's a very heavy-handed metaphor, but I think it's a really, really well executed one. It's very effective. I am curious to see what else the book is going to offer. There has been a hint of a tragedy in the family, and the mother, who is telling her perspective through hindsight, says she's haunted by Africa, that there is something that happened, that it stays with her, and it has been haunting her for the rest of her life. So I am curious to see what goes on in the rest of the novel, and so far it is not too bad. So I will update more as I get closer to the end and my final thoughts. This takes place in the middle of the 20th century, and I think it was a very, very interesting way to frame a story like this. They are all framed through the women in the family, that being the wife and the 4 daughters, and I really enjoyed their perspective more than I would have enjoyed the preacher Nathan's perspective. We never get his perspective, so it just shows how disconnected he was to his family and how obsessed he was with trying to convert the African people into Christianity, and how far he was willing to go in sacrificing his family in order to do so. All of the women's perspectives were all written very uniquely, as they all follow completely different parts of their life. They all go in completely different directions in their lives, and I think it was so interesting to read about how Africa itself and how their mission work and how living there affected all of them in completely different ways. And it was just such a great novel to show that colonization or mission work just does not work most of the time. Really, it is just sort of a poison that is brought to the land, and that poison cannot take root because of, just the failure in attempting to do that to a nation that is completely fine on their own, despite the fact that they were dealing with their own attempts at independence and attempts to deal with communism and all of that, and capitalism. So while I was initially hesitant to start the novel, I found myself really enjoying it in the end. It is not a book I would typically pick up, obviously. I'm not huge on historical fiction, but this one was a surprise for me, and I really, really enjoyed it. So those were my final thoughts on the Poisonwood Bible, and now I am done my discussion of all of the books that I read for this quarter, this half of the year. The remaining books that I have to read off of the poster, I think I have set myself up for failure. However, I will be finishing War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, and I will also be reading The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, A Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth, Ulysses by James Joyce, and finishing off the poster by reading Hamlet by William Shakespeare. So stay tuned for my final vlog where I will be completing all of those books. I promise I will lock in and do my best. But until then, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to comment on this video. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you didn't. See you all next time. Bye bye.